Yeah. Welcome back to another episode of Radical Responsibility Revolution. And we are in a revolution, folks. This is the first week of January 2026. And today's guest is one of those women who didn't decide to become wise. Life just kept handing her passports. I love a good passport story. She got pattern recognition skills and front row seats to human behavior until wisdom became unavoidable. Michaela Gaffen Stone is a board certified behavior analyst. I'm afraid human design specialist, trauma informed coach, global citizen, and lifelong sleuth. Oh my gosh, so many fabulous things. Sleuth of the human psyche. She's going to sleuth some of me, probably. She's lived in 8 countries, worked everywhere from Montessori classrooms to orphanages in Bangladesh. I mean, come on. She's trained through Mind Valley and somehow managed to weave science, spirituality, neuroscience, and radical responsibility. Oh my God, what a beautiful package into one beautifully grounded framework she calls the Gaffen Stone Aligned Framework. Michaela works with women who are done burning themselves out, trying to live by a masculine success playbook that was never designed for us. We don't believe that, ladies. She helps women dismantle old trauma stories without reliving them. Yay. Reconnect with their natural energy blueprint through human design. Love to talk about that. And step out of blame and shame, the lowest vibration on the planet. And into choice, breath, and power. If you've ever felt like your body tapped out before your soul did, I know that's a lot of you. If you've ever realized that responsibility isn't it about fault, but about freedom, and if you know deep down that the feminine rebalancing happening on this planet, I'm so excited, isn't chaos, it's correction. This conversation is going to light you up. So buckle up. Let's dive in. Oh my God, Michaela, I'm so excited to talk to you with all of that amazing history that you have, that wisdom that you bring. And the first thing I ask every guest is, what are you doing today? I mean, oh my God, we're starting a brand new year. You are sharing up, showing up, being the wisdom bearer for the planet. How do we see you? How do you want to be seen right here and right now? And then we'll talk about how you got to be where you are.
Right here, right now. Well, I'm just going to go with what comes up as it comes up. First thing is
Yes.
we have just adopted a couple of little puppies that were born in a trash heap in Puerto Rico. And it's been an adventure getting them all the way to Colorado, but here they are. And so we love to rescue dogs and cats. We have 11 now. Um, so it's quite a number, but they're a pack. They move together. And then in my sort of productive life, I'm working on human design plus a new level of human design called Success Codex. Hold on to your hats
Ooh.
for that one because that really is next level amazing. And I'm doing some deep training into that for the next year. Um, yeah, and I'm just busy weaving what I do into different formats so that more people can access it. It's not a case of discounting anything, it's a case of repackaging what you need at the moment, and then you can get more of what you need later. If that makes
Yes.
sense, that's what I'm doing.
Oh, it makes perfect sense, actually. There's a lot to unpack there. I want to just come off of the last thing that you said is about repackaging what you need. I was on a call yesterday, a Zoom call, a mastermind with some social media people and talking about packaging things in bite-sized pieces for people because we are in the world of overwhelm. It's
Yes.
everything's coming at us. And sometimes we just want to see one thing that we need to work on at any given time. So brilliant. And I know that will serve you well. First of all, I will talk about human design in a second, but you started out with the puppies because that was calling you. My sister does dog rescues. So I'm very intimately aware of that. That's not my thing, but I do love that energy that so many people have to be compassionate with our fur babies. So how did that even happen? How did you say, "Oh, I'm going to start adopting puppies"? It's like adopting or fostering children. You don't make that decision lightly.
No, I've always wanted a pack, and I moved to
Mm.
Maine from Canada, and I was in a place where, well, we could start getting some animals, and so we did, and we had rescues from Alabama that were coming from kill shelters. We had locals. We just adopted until we were at critical mass, we couldn't take any more. And then we moved all of them from Maine to Colorado during 2020, during the shutdown. That was an interesting journey.
I'm
But we
sure.
all made it. And then recently, very sadly, we lost our biggest dog. He was really my soul dog. And he left such a hole for the other dogs. It was incredible. And
Oh,
they looked like rudderless ships. They didn't know what to do with themselves. And then
oh,
just as I'm wondering, what am I going to do about this? As it happens with the universe, right in front of my eyes came this, hey, there are these puppies that were born in a trash heap in Puerto Rico. And I looked at them and said, "Oh, we'll take two." And I checked with my husband, and
yeah, yeah.
he's game. So we now have two. We got them 2 days ago.
Oh my God. Isn't that just like, I don't know, my whole being just lights up like honey. That's such a warm energy. So let's transition from that to your human design, because I don't know that everyone knows what human design is, which we will talk in a second. But how do you see that energy, for that compassion for these fur babies in your human design? What quality is it? We'll get really deep into it, but I think it's really interesting to see how people show up. This is not everyone's passion, but when it is your passion, it is so beautiful. As I said, I watch it with my sister. I've never seen anybody so committed, and the people that are in the rescue realm are just like you. It's like, I'm going to go find these fur babies in another country. This is so exciting. What is that
So
about you
far,
that makes that? What is your human design that this quality shows up?
I literally have compassion in my human design. It is literally in
Yeah.
there. So it's
Hmm.
one of the themes that runs through me. And I also have a strong sense, very strong sense of justice and balance. And I
Hmm.
can't stand to see injustice or suffering where there doesn't need to be any. And when it comes to animals, any kind of animal really, but I am especially for dogs, and my husband really likes cats, so we've got both.
Yeah.
Um, they're just a bundle of love, each one of them. Like, how can
Yeah.
you not? So
Yeah.
I just look around and figure, yeah, we have room. Let's throw some more in. And,
Yeah.
I'm happy to keep going until we run out of space, really. And then probably a little beyond that, because I do tend to
Yeah.
go over the top a little.
And so let's talk about human design. There are so many people I know. I've talked to people that still don't know what a chakra is. So I'm just saying, we get in our arenas, right? And
Mhm.
we, at least I do. I think everybody knows what I know, and I'm always so surprised to find out that they don't, because we're diving into different silos. I love about human design the same thing I love about astrology. It's based on your birth location and time and all of that energy, where we were in this thing called space and time. So it's not as woo woo as something in my mind, because I love woo woo anyways. But there's so much, if I feel like there's more science around it. So talk about what it is. Explain it in the third grade, fifth grade terms. Ooh,
Because I have a very science background. You already ran through some of it. I have 4 degrees,
yeah.
and they're all sciencey, right? And
Mhm.
people will often sort of look very curiously at me and say, "Well, how are you doing work with human design? Like, how does that work?"
Right.
It's very simple, actually. It's a continuum because we are not stuck in one part of that whole range. And human design is a living science. So if I'm doing your human design, I will give you information that you then evaluate and you go test. You don't have to believe anything I tell you. It's not like I'm reading your future. No, you are in control of that. That's not my arena to play with. But
Mhm.
human design is so fascinating because it's so accurate. And
Mhm.
unless you've messed up, like you've got your time wrong or something, the only chart I've ever had that didn't land, and I was so surprised, and when we went and looked, she'd put her time wrong by 12 hours. We
Yeah.
redid it, went through it, yep, it landed. So,
Mhm.
I'm not saying it couldn't be inaccurate, I'm just saying it hasn't been.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it tells you what's right about you. So when you're born, you have a whole set of criteria, if you will, ways that you're going to show up in the world. Like one of my kids,
Mhm.
he was born looking worried. He looked worried from day one. That was how he arrived, bless him. And we bring stuff with us, right? And we
Right.
bring a lens that then develops.
Hmm.
Depending on the environment you're in, you get shaped into what other people think you ought to be like.
Yep.
And therein lies the problem because it squashes who you really are.
Mhm.
And we spend the rest of our lives trying to figure out, why do I keep doing this thing that doesn't work? Why is this happening? Why da 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 da? Well, the answer is because it's not you. It's something you've taken on. You thought it was yours because you were told it was, but it isn't. And so human design is here to say, okay, let's unpack this. Let's see what the signs are when you're in alignment. What are your signposts like? What does your path feel like? What's it like when you're out of alignment? And now let's have a look at the areas where things are kind of blocked up. And we'll look at why. Behavior analysis can come in at this point because I can see what you're doing and where it's getting you. And if you want
Mhm.
a different outcome, I can give you a different path. Scientifically, I can give it to you. Um, I like to give the tools to people so they can do it for themselves, but it all kind of blends seamlessly. And human design cuts the coaching time down significantly because I don't have to
Right.
do any guesswork. I've already
Right.
got a whole heap of information and we can start there. And it's
Yeah.
surprising the pathways it takes you. I mean, I have a
Yeah.
couple of stories if you want them, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I always
Absolutely.
have stories.
Well, you know what? I do love the stories because they give us a context and understanding of what you just said. And when you're talking, I love the idea that you are blending really the soulfulness of who we are as spiritual beings with that scientific, because it really is all the same anyways. I love what you said at the end is you're basically taking a shortcut to the understanding of who is in front of you
Mhm.
because we can go, I have still friends and relatives that go to psychologists and I'm like, do you know how long that takes? And even if you go to a coach and they're lasering you, but this is what you just said was it makes that coaching process even easier because you don't have to go through that question and answer period of teasing out whatever's going on with them. So that's brilliant. Let's hear a really direct story like that because I love the idea of lasering in.
Sure. And it can also be that what you think is the problem isn't the problem. That often
Exactly.
happens. So one of my
Hmm.
favorite stories is of a woman I'd done her human design and she's very happy with it. Went off, came back a few months later and said, "Can you help me with time management?" And I was fascinated. Interesting question to ask. So of course we're going to dive in and find out what managing of time do you want to do? Like, what does that look like? She wanted to manage her time so she could fit more work in. Self-employed woman wanted to do more work. Why do you want more work? Well, because I want more money. Okay, let's start looking at money. And we spent three
Yeah.
months, which is all it took, to get from highly dysfunctional to clarity on what the money stories were that was running her behavior, basically. All the information you have in your subconscious, which is most of
Hmm.
what you do in the day, all your habits are subconscious, those stories came from elsewhere. You made them mean something, usually as a child, and you operate from that. You don't check your
Right.
manual again. And so when you have problems with money, for example, it's typically because there's dissonance between what your mom said and your dad said, the
Yeah.
environment you lived in, how people spent money or didn't. You got all this stuff that you've made mean something, and now you behave from there. It tells your behavior what to do. And you end up, this woman in particular, she was hiding money from herself. It was fascinating. We discovered
Mm.
$1,500 worth of monthly subscriptions that
Oh,
she
wow.
forgot she had.
Wow.
And then were other places where there was money that she'd forgotten was there. You know, your brain
Hmm.
can make you forget things if you don't want to know them.
Hmm.
And so by the time we'd finished unraveling where she'd squirreled stuff away and why, at the end of 3 months, she said, "This is great. Not only do I not need to work more, I'm going traveling now." And she
Exactly.
took off, like, yes, I'll call that a win. Thank you.
Yeah. 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 I think since I teach about money and abundance, we get in these traps of I either have to shrink back in what I want. This whole affordability conversation cracks me up because it really is about just creating more. How do I create more time, more space, more money, etc.? And we get locked into those maps that you were just describing, these belief patterns, and then we just repeat them. The way you said it
Hmm.
was brilliant. It was just, we just keep practicing this old behavior from when we're kids, which is not really
Yeah,
effective when
well,
we're grown
the
up now.
limitations that people experience are self-imposed
Oh,
limitations,
yeah, their
and
own.
you've done that since childhood.
Yep.
And to bring human design into it specifically, for example, for manifestors, which is only 8% of the world's population, but it's a potent 8%. Manifestors
Hmm.
have a very large magnetic field, also called aura. You can see it on scans and what have you. It is scientific.
Hmm.
And the aura is, in traditional language, repelling, but I much prefer selective. It's a very powerful aura, and some people can't stand it, and others are going to be drawn. That person, as a child, is a very strong-willed child. That's how they come across. And they're very changeable. Like they'll be working on something and then suddenly change direction. This
Hmm.
isn't fickle or lack of tenacity or you're a quitter or any of this stuff. It's they have enough information from this and now need to move over there. The manifestor is on a different timeline. Think of a degree, for example. Just because you're told this degree takes 4 years, who said so? Does
Who
it?
said so? That's
Like
right.
maybe you only need 6 months worth of the information. Maybe you get
Yep.
everything you need in that time frame. A manifester is likely to do that, and then they drop it and take off somewhere else. Well, when you're a kid, and that's your energy, that's your behavior, parents, teachers, society at large are going to try and squish you into a
Right.
box because they need to know what you're doing and where you are. And you're unpredictable. You're like a pinball
Yep.
machine as a manifester. And so
Yep.
you're told you're too much. You're told you can't do that. You've got to stop. You've got to slow down. You have to, da 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 da. There's a whole story. For a manifester, that then their out of alignment sign is anger. This isn't the case for everybody, but it is for
Yeah.
manifestors.
Yeah.
Now, if you can't express your anger, and usually you can't as a child, it's not safe.
Right.
Adults don't like that. So if you can't express your anger, if you can't work it through, you internalize it. And that shows up in adulthood as somebody who self sabotages, shoots themselves in the foot, metaphorically, hopefully not literally, and they will screw up continually because they're doing it from that childhood sense of, I might as well do it myself and just mess it up because you're not going to let me do it anyway. And there's a
Hmm.
sort of defeatist
Hmm.
child in that adult, and you've built your adult personality on top of that child.
Yeah.
That wasn't addressed or fixed. So
So
those old
w-
stories have to be dismantled.
that's for us grown-up people. As you're telling this story, I'm thinking of all the children in the world today. There's an over medication of kids for, these various things, right? Because they fit into these categories. How many manifestor children are out there right now being called ADHD or hyperactive? Do you have clients that come to you and get the human design for their kids so that they
Oh
can
yeah.
be better parents? To me, that seems like that would be brilliant,
Yes, and I love that for them. I absolutely love that for them because if you understand how your child works and you understand how you work and how that connects and
right?
disconnects, then you can be a more understanding parent without even trying. If your
Right.
child is a projector, they are not built, they are not designed to work all day consistently. They're designed to be brilliant for 2 or 3 hours and then
Hmm.
take a chill, like go
Right.
nap, go for a walk in the woods or something. And maybe
Right.
they'll be brilliant later, maybe they won't. But that downtime is actually integration, it's
Hmm.
creation of wisdom, like it's all kinds of things. If you're working out physically,
Hmm.
you're in a
Hmm.
gym, you're working out, your day off is where you get the gains. That's
Yes.
where the
Right.
good
The
stuff
rest.
happens.
Hmm.
Well,
Hmm.
it's the same for a projector. Their rest break is where they get their input, their wisdom. And if they have to keep working through that, they become exhausted and
Right.
upset, and the day just doesn't go very well. And you have a
Right.
very discombobulated child who's then
Right.
told, oh, you're a daydreamer, you're not trying hard enough, you're this,
Mm-hmm.
this, this. They get judged and they haven't done anything. They're trying to follow their design.
Right.
Um, so knowing that that's your child, you can give them a lot of grace. You can give them
Yeah.
what they need and figure out the day so that they can have that space to simply be. If you've got a manifester, you're ready for them to charge off and do things all over the place.
Right.
And you're
Yep.
going to remind them, hey, can you tell me what you're doing? Because manifestors tend to forget to do that, and then people get upset. So
Right.
that one little tweak there will make a world of difference.
Mm-hmm.
Generators are built to go all day, so long as it
Mm-hmm.
lights them up. You can't force it though. If you don't enjoy what you're doing, then it's not going to go well. The end result won't be a good result, right?
Right.
You can't force it, it just doesn't work.
Right.
So,
I,
and then with you mentioned ADHD, um, a lot of kids are being diagnosed with ADHD when actually it's sugar, red dye, lack of sleep,
oh,
and
yeah.
way too much electronics.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Autism is in fact autism. It is a legit thing. And I work with people with autism a lot as a behavior analyst. And that is a different matter. And it can be the behaviors that show up can be made worse if there's a lot of electronic involvement,
Mm-hmm.
if there's sugar, if there's too much carb in the diet, like
Yeah.
pasta,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, bread, that kind of thing. So the simple carbs. So it's affected by modern living. ADHD, however, there's an awful lot of it that is simply we don't have an attention span anymore because
Mm-hmm.
kids are scrolling
Oh,
like
yeah.
this when they're
Mm-hmm.
2.
Yeah.
What do you mean you're
Yeah.
doing this when you're 2? Like your brain can't possibly handle that.
No.
It's not doable. And then think of parenting today. If you try and
Mm-hmm.
parent a child the way you were parented, you haven't got a
Mm-hmm.
hope in hell that's going to work out because we don't have the same species now. These kids are not us. They are
Yeah.
not the way we are. Our brains are wired differently. Challenges are different. The benefits are different. We are in a different planet. This is a whole other ball game. You cannot parent a fully electronic child who's totally wired to the internet. You can't parent that child like a kid on a farm.
Yeah.
It's not the same. You
Well,
can't do it.
so let's take that concept though of all of the environment that's coming at the kids and the fact that they have these other things going on outside of them, the screen time, etc. But bring it down to that human design. Because even if we've let that get out of control, I believe that nothing is settled and you can bring it back. You can gradually get a better environment for a child if you're a parent wanting to do that. Bringing that solution of, I need to look and see how my child is motivated in life. How do they get drivers inside of them that create that energy to make them happy? And that's really what human design is about. It's like, what motivates me to be the best that I can be? And if we look at that, then could that not help a parent mitigate what they're letting happen to them? Because really that's out, those are outside environments.
100%, 100%. I mean, I'll give the listener a clue right away. If you get your human design chart in front of you, yours, your child's, whoever's you can get, you make sure you've got the time correctly. And you can get this on my website for free. You can do that. Have a look at the very top of your chart, and there's a triangle, and it's your
Hmm.
crown, right?
Yeah.
And your crown is where you receive inspiration and ideas. And it's a pressure center. It's a pressure to think, to understand, not to think, to understand and to inspire, be inspired. Now, if that center is white, it's not defined, right? Then you are an open book. That center will absorb and amplify other people's energies, other people's crown energies.
Hmm.
So, and other people's influence, right? So, if your center's open, which means no gates are defined, or undefined, one or two are defined and it doesn't meet anywhere, then if you have that white center, you need to curate your environment very carefully. If you're listening
Hmm.
to podcasts, Are you listening to true crime, or are you listening to something that's uplifting? Because
Yeah.
it will make a difference. This inspiration will enter into your person, be amplified, and you'll think it's yours because it kind of feels like it's yours. But if
Mhm.
you notice, if you change your environment, if you change the books you're reading, the people you're listening to, the TV you watch, please, if anybody's still watching the news, could you stop? It's not news, it's nonsense. Just don't, right? But if you're having all that input in, surely
Mhm.
you wake up angry in the morning. Surely you wake up with doom, gloom, and all the rest of
Mhm.
it because you've allowed all that in
Right.
and let it sit there and fester. So you
Mhm.
can totally change the environment, curate what you accept,
Right.
consider what are you tolerating. What you tolerate is what you accept. You allow it. So if you're going to listen
Right.
to all the drivel, well, okay, that's what you're going to be putting out there. Just like an
Yeah.
AI, you can only spout out what you
It's
get.
just we're training ourselves. We're putting that data in. And
Yeah.
I remember years ago when I learned how to program, which I said I took one course in in junior college and said I don't ever want to do that. But it's garbage in, garbage out, right? If
Yes.
then this. So if then we put in this, we're going to get out that. But I think this is such a beautiful. I don't know what I'm putting out, what energy, because I can feel myself sending this into the universe of that we need human design. I did leadership training around the world for many, many years. And I always did a personality profile, like a quick one they could do at a
Mhm.
seminar. And it's always about in service to how do you get along with your teammates, right? If you actually call yourself a team in a work environment, but just this idea for kids and for us in these workplaces or even our own businesses to do a human design so that we begin to coalesce with one another in a way that we understand. What is it? Stephen Covey said in the Seven Habits, seek first to understand and then to be understood.
Mhm.
That's really one of the missing ingredients in our world today. So, comment on how you have seen that the idea of human design help with businesses, not just people's lives, because I believe it would help everybody and it's simple to do it on your own, but with your children, with schools, with businesses. It's an unlimited fountain of goodness.
It absolutely is. And I worked with a startup social media company from Vancouver, Canada, and I did human design for everybody that worked there,
Mhm.
and then looked at where are the problem areas likely to be in this group and how can we mitigate that before it even starts? How can we change it? So one
Mhm.
of the things I looked at was where is the gate of control? Who has that? Because it gives you a need to be in charge of something, and
Mhm.
being second guessed doesn't tend to go well. So the thing that you're in charge of should be your expertise. So I started there with who's
Yes.
got that, and then made them do this instead of this, right? We don't want
Yes.
the
Yes.
boom, we want them to
Yeah.
pass. So
Right.
I did that, and then we looked at, okay, who's the high energy, who's a little more zen, who's good with systems, who's good with, I looked at where the strengths were, excuse me, and I had permission all the way through, of course, and only shared what was needed to be shared with permission. And they all kind of navigated their roles based on their strengths. And each person that needed the control had their area of control. And it
Mhm.
was theirs. Nobody micromanages that. It's yours. You
Mhm.
handle it, you're responsible. And they loved it. It went over really well. They really
Yeah.
enjoyed it. Now, for teachers, it's like having knowledge of the different styles of learning. If you know
Yeah.
what different kids you've got in your classroom and how many of them, like you might not have a reflector. If you do, you kind of want to know about it because a reflector is 1% of the world's population. And that poor soul has nothing defined. So they are like a chameleon. They are changeable
Mhm.
and they will be a different person every couple of days. They will show up a little differently. And they are different depending on who is in their environment. The reason for the name reflector is because that person literally, with all those open centers, all those undefined centers, they absorb all the energy and amplify
Right.
it. So it's like the canary in the coal mine. You will know if you have a problem because the reflector is going to show it to you. And you know,
I've met
one
them.
percent, 1% is plenty because it's a lot for them. You know, it's an
Yeah.
awful lot to handle. And reflectors will often have um, a very chaotic personal life, regardless of how their work life goes. I can give you a
Mm.
couple of famous examples. One
Mhm.
is Sandra Bullock, the actor.
She's a reflector?
She's a reflector. Now think of the roles she's
Interesting.
in. She can do anything.
Everything. Yeah.
She is whoever she goes to be, right?
She's a
She can do anything.
chameleon. Yeah. Hmm.
Look at her personal life, and it's a disaster. The poor
Oh,
woman has had
interesting.
dire relationships because a
Uh-huh.
reflector tends to attract narcissists, right? Because
Oh.
you are literally a mirror for them. You're showing them how gorgeous they are, right? So it's a very tough design to navigate. And I love
Wow.
working with reflectors because there's a lot to work with. And
Wow.
discovering how to offload other people's energy and how long it takes you to make a good decision and all of that's important. If you have one of those in your classroom, you kind of need to know. You know, I
Ex-
would want to know. Um,
exactly.
so any group environment, if you know your human design and you're
Hmm.
using it for good, right? You're not trying to mess anybody up. You're not going to
Right.
make the projector work solid 12-hour shifts, that kind of thing. Um, it can only be good. You know, it can
Yeah.
only be helpful because you understand each other. Like I did my husband's human design and I did mine. And, you know, we figured out, oh, okay, so you process this way and I process that way. And
Right.
yeah, that tracks. Okay. So we figured out, well, this is how you do things. There's nothing wrong with it. It might not be the
Exactly.
most comfortable way of doing things, but it's how you do it. It's how
Right.
you get to where you're going. If you've
Yep.
got somebody with a 3 or a 6 in their profile, look it up on your chart. But if you've got a 3 or a 6, you are an experimental individual. You need to FAFO. You need to mess around and find out how it works. And wherever it doesn't work, get excited because that's the good stuff. That's where you
Yeah.
learn all
Yeah.
the good things, right?
Yep.
It's not comfortable. It's not like floating down a river on a lilo. It's more like
Yeah.
paddling up the rapids,
Yeah.
right? It's a
Hmm.
different experience, but you build more muscle paddling up the
Yes.
rapids.
Yes. As I'm listening to you, the thing that just makes me so excited, and I wish that I had a pulpit that I could make things happen, in the world, because it's the what you have just shared. My takeaway is every single person, which I already believe this, is brilliant in their own way, right? And
Yeah.
we aren't celebrating our differences. We are demonizing our differences. And the fact is they're just what make us beautiful and unique. As you said, even just a relationship in your family, your husband and you understand how you show up in the world. And it may not be the way I want to, but I can see and appreciate that's who you are. And if we just, from a perspective of human behavior, I'd like to hear because you're a wiser woman. I believe that once we do this menopause or get into it, then well, I know we rewire our brains because Lisa said so. But the fact is that we get into our wisdom age, our wisdom season. And so you can reflect back with all of these degrees of human behavior besides the human design. What is the crux of why we behave in this contrary way to one another? This oppositional, like you're wrong, I'm right. What is that all about?
It's everything to do with what you learn as a child, and you learn mistakes are bad. You learn that being in a group is safe, being othered is not. And, you know, we got this in the lizard brain as well from, well,
Yeah.
if you get thrown out the cave, the saber-toothed tiger is going to eat you.
Yeah.
You know, so you need to be in the group. So
Yeah. Yeah.
sameness,
Yeah.
safe. Sameness is safe. But
Hmm.
we also have learned mistakes are bad. Mistakes mean I am bad, me, not the thing that I did.
Mm-hmm. Oh
And
yeah.
we get this whole shame blame thing. And as you mentioned in the intro, I have a big thing about shame and blame because it is the lowest vibration you can possibly get into. You can't take action from there. You
Right.
can't fix or create or achieve anything from blame and shame because you're too busy disempowering yourself and being disempowered by others. And you can't do that. Like if it's your fault that I had a bad day today, I have zero power to do anything about that because it's your fault. You did it,
Right.
right?
Right.
If you
Right.
accept that blame, now you have a burden and you can't do
Yeah.
anything because you're feeling so badly. It's
Right.
nonsense. But we're taught this from very early on. How many parents use guilt as a tool to keep their kids
Hmm.
under control?
Hmm.
Right? Guilt is a great one. People love to
Yeah.
use that. So we get this dysfunctional approach to interacting with other people. And it's that zero sum gain as well of, well,
Hmm.
if you're doing okay, then I can't be.
Right.
But it's not pie. We can all get there, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
it's not true, but this is sort of perpetuated. Well, I have to be better than you,
Hmm.
and that means that I got to put you down and climb over the top of you. And in the US in particular, this is the eighth country I've lived in, so I've experienced it in different places.
Right.
But in the US in particular, there is that whole culture of I'll pull myself up by the bootstraps. Yes, and I'll climb over bodies while I do it. That is
Hmm.
the whole thing. Like the American dream, cool. Nobody ever said what the path was. You've
Yeah.
got this idea of I'm going to achieve this thing, but nobody ever says how to get there. And so people go for the lowest common denominator type behavior, which is, well, I'm
Hmm.
going to climb over everybody else to get to the top. And that perpetuates this sense of, well, if you're not struggling, you're not trying hard enough, you're getting ahead of me, let me pull you back. There's a lot of dysfunction from this wrong way of thinking.
Right. Yeah. So blame and shame, I do want to just touch on that for a second because you talked about it. It's the lowest vibration on the planet. I talk about this a lot, but I'd like to always just bring somebody else's conversation into it, explain it a different way. We're all, it's all a vibration, it's all energy. And the fact is that we will never get the higher level of vibration feeling that we desire. We say we desire, which is the joy and the love and all of the good stuff by dwelling in these low vibration energies. But just from a science perspective and a human behavior perspective and a human design, I want you to just comment on vibration, period, because people go, oh, I don't know what that means. I mean, literally, there's so many people that hear these buzzwords because I think sometimes they are until you really understand them. So, talk about a low vibration energy and how that keeps you stuck.
Give us an example, and I think this might paint the picture for at least the visual thinkers.
Mm.
So you have a friend, and your friend is depressed, and I don't mean clinical depression. I mean they're just feeling miserable, and I hate my job. Everything sucks. My boyfriend's lousy, and you listen to them for, I don't know, 10 minutes, half an hour, whatever you want to do. You've just had a phone call with them, or worse, you're sitting next to them.
Right.
Tell me that you're having the best day of your week, because you're not, right? You're feeling like, oh,
Oh my
I
God.
need to
Yeah.
go and lie down now. You just wiped out. That is low energy. That is low
Right.
vibration. That just sucked the life out of you into a
And that
black
was that
hole.
that was you getting sucked out by somebody else's low vibration. Imagine how that's affecting them.
Yeah, but you also allowed it, right? You
Yeah,
went there.
exactly.
You
Yeah.
let them do that to you. Now you're around somebody who's
Yeah.
bouncing up and down, saying, "Yeah, baby, I just won the lottery, and whoa, I'm going to do this." And now, how are you feeling? You're having, unless you're in a jealousy mode, and oh well, you always get all the things and I don't. You're still in blame, shame, right?
Yeah.
But if you're
Yeah.
not in that space, then you're feeling so much better because the energy is higher, the
Yeah.
vibration is higher. It's literally, we are all vibration. This is vibration now with
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
communication.
Yeah.
Look at sound. You can literally look at sound. You've got the
Yeah.
meters and stuff that will do that for you. So vibration is everywhere. We can see
Yeah.
it. It's not a mystery. It's just that
Mhm.
because it's become a buzzword, people don't like it. It's like using the word authenticity. What does that mean these days? Exactly. Your response is exactly the one, right? Like, oh my God, authenticity.
Because
You
it's
know,
overused, right? Yeah.
it's overused and it's misused. People say it when
Yeah.
they don't mean it.
Yes,
Because by and
exactly.
large, everybody will tell you, be authentic, be yourself,
Right.
until the moment you say something they don't like, and now it's a problem, right? You get othered, you get shoved
Yeah.
over into that side. So, do
Mhm.
they really want
Mhm.
you to be authentic? No, they want you to be a spokesperson for their opinions. And
Yes,
this is where
exactly.
we get confused. Like, if I need you to agree with me on
Hmm.
an argument, so we're having an argument about something. Let's go politics. Why not? We're having an argument about politics, and I need you to change your mind, and you need to agree with me. So, in order for that to happen, you have to acknowledge to yourself that you were wrong. Human beings don't
Hmm.
like doing that.
Oh
You are
no.
going to feel that, oh no, that wrongness, that shame, right?
Hmm.
Oh, I made a
Hmm.
mistake. And then you got to admit to me that you made a mistake. So you got
Hmm.
levels of it going on right away. And then what does
Hmm.
that do for me? Ah, I was right. So the whole need to have somebody else agree with you is actually quite toxic
Yeah,
if you think
exactly.
about it, because you need them
Hmm.
to be wrong.
Yes,
You need that
absolutely.
person to be less than you
Right.
and for them to acknowledge that they're wrong. And then they come over to your side, which makes you more right than you were before.
Yeah.
That's kind of what we do to each other all the time.
It
So it's a
is.
horrible way of going.
And it's also with no tools. So just to circle this back to the human design, I used to do icebreakers in all of my courses. It really is an icebreaker to have conversations about, wow, I can see with your human design how you might view the world that way, as opposed to you're a flippin' idiot. I don't know. I think I hadn't really had this thought in my head until we started having this conversation that human design could save the world, but I'll leave that to you
Well,
to do that.
well, I think the potential is there. It won't be
There is the
realized, but it
potential.
is there.
Right.
But
Well, exactly.
if you have an open crown, then
Yeah.
you know a whole heap about yourself right now. And
Yeah.
you know that you don't have to believe everything you just heard. The inspiration that you're feeling from this person, go for a walk for a bit, see if you're still feeling it. Listen to a different
Oh, I
type of podcast. Are you still feeling it? Did it go away?
yes.
Right?
Yes.
You have
Exactly.
control because you know how you operate. You know
Yeah.
how that works. There's the ego center, also known as the heart center, and willpower, drive. Um, let's go with those two for now. Those live in that center. Now, if your center is undefined, you don't have willpower. You don't have it.
Hmm.
It's not
Hmm.
fixed and constant for you. But if you're playing a game of Monopoly with a group of friends, you are probably going to remove their heads in order to win the game because you are more competitive than them while they are there. And then as soon as they've gone,
Yeah.
I don't care if I win. It's
Yeah.
literally gone again. Where
Yeah.
does that come to importance? If you are taking on an ambitious project, or if you are making promises. Now, anybody listening to this that makes promises as a habit,
Hmm.
consider that for a moment, because typically you promise something to prove your worth. You don't need to promise anything. And if you have that center undefined, it would be ideal for you not to promise, because typically you're going to promise when somebody else is bridging that gap for you, and you're absorbing their energy. And as soon as they've gone, you can't complete the project. You can't complete the promise because you don't have it anymore. The energy went, the
Okay,
oomph went.
I'm stuck on what you said that we make promises to validate our worth, basically is what
Yeah.
I heard.
Yeah, you're proving your
Explain
worth.
that. Explain that.
Well, you're saying, I promise I'll get this done by the end of the day. You're proving that I'm worthwhile. I'm gonna do my thing. I'm gonna get, I'm
Wow, that's a
keeping to my
very
word.
interesting.
You're
Yeah.
proving something. I promise I'll behave better next time. Oi, no, that's a very vague
Huh.
promise, but promises mean that you are committing to something to prove a point. If you're gonna get it done, you don't need to promise.
That is
right?
a very interesting. I love it when I have a light bulb moment because I used to teach to women in leadership. Stop saying I'm sorry because we that's another overused thing that we do. But this whole concept of us promising to do something is really not tied to that person. It's tied to us.
Sure. Do you
What
ever
a
hear men saying it?
revolutionary. Pardon me? No.
Do you hear men
Well,
saying it? No,
yeah.
seriously. I mean,
I don't
in the
know.
workplace, if you're working with leadership women
Yeah.
and you see a group of men, listen in. Do you ever hear them say, "Oh, I promise I'll get that done. I promise
Yeah.
I'll do X"?
Yeah.
No, it's not in their vocabulary.
Yeah.
It's just
Huh.
like if you were blindfolded and somebody said, "Oh, three people in this room are trying to keep themselves, held back a little bit. They're trying to, make things smoother." You would know immediately that they're women. You wouldn't even have
Yeah.
to hear their voices or anything, right? You could put money on it
Yeah.
that they're women because men aren't taught that. Now, it's not
Yeah.
men's fault they're not taught that, but it
Yeah.
is a clear indication that we take on something as women. We don't need to do that. Nobody needs
Yeah.
to be less than they are.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
bad design. We're all
Yeah.
designed perfectly.
Perfectly.
The
Hmm.
problem comes in when other people tell you how that ought to be.
Right.
But
Yeah.
think of a movie, right? 10 people go to a movie. You ask each of those people after the movie, what did you see? You will get 10 different versions of what they saw. Well,
Hmm.
this is your lens. Your
Yeah.
lens comes from your life experience, your
Right.
beliefs, your thoughts, your norms, all the things that you accept to be true, but you're only
Yeah.
true because you accept them to be so. But then you look at that other person and everything that you are, you project onto them.
Yeah.
So you see facets of them that you want to see,
Yeah.
and you project what you're expecting onto that person,
Yeah.
good or bad,
Yeah.
right? You have a story about that person. And you know what?
Yeah.
It's got absolutely nothing to do with them whatsoever.
Yeah.
So when somebody
Yeah.
comes to you and says, "Oh, I think you're too much," or "I think you're,"
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
follows that,
Yeah.
interesting piece of information about you. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I'm
Exactly.
not going to do anything with it, but thanks.
What I read a book when I was in my 20s by a spiritual teacher, and the book was "What Other People Think About Me Is None of My Business," because that's
Sure.
surely the adoptive philosophy I think we should have. That doesn't mean we all do it and doesn't mean I do it, but I want to talk about all of the information that you've shared with me. I'll put in the show notes about how to go to your website and do the human design. But I want to talk about this codex that you're talking about that's coming up. So just because I was like, okay, I'm going to save it to the end because I really am excited about it. I've been keeping my anticipation and excitement at bay here. So I'm excited. Tell me all about it.
Well, Success Codex is something I'm learning from a brilliant woman by the name of Ankara Rose. And she has created this facet, if you will, of human design. It also brings more astrology into it than human design has. So there are some
Hmm.
different features. And it basically, different centers, different parts of you have, I'm just calling it up on my screen as I talk to you. So you have different areas. There's leadership, there's purpose, primary genius, all these different areas. And it's very succinct. So there's what is your primary genius? How do you show up? Your impression, what do people receive from you?
Hmm.
So my impression, for example, is through trust, people feel they can trust me and I'm perceived as a friend.
Hmm.
I'd like to think that's pretty accurate.
Hmm.
Yeah. And people
Yeah.
do trust me. I get told all kinds of things, and
Yeah.
I don't pass that on because, you can actually trust me. Like I wouldn't do that. But also,
Yeah.
you can trust that if I'm saying something, it came from a place of knowledge rather than talking out of my ear. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm not
Yes.
just
I know exactly
spouting
what
it.
you're
I'm being
saying.
terribly polite, by the way. I'm
No. It's also it comes from wisdom from being here for a while. Like there's a difference
right.
between somebody sharing the information, if you will, that you're sharing that's 23 and somebody that's had a few years on the planet. It just that wisdom comes from exploring and experience and also with all of the training and knowledge that you have. So yes, it's a whole different thing and I understand it. And I hope everybody else does too, because that's where the trust comes in.
Great. I like that. So Success Codex is something that's it goes deep, deep, deep. It's
Mm-hmm.
not so much broad as really
Right.
dives deep. So in maybe 6 months' time, if you want me to do a podcast with you on Success
Yes,
Codex and maybe do yours for
absolutely.
you, I'm
Yeah,
happy to do
absolutely.
that.
Yeah.
It's a whole new level. You have the approach of how are you going to bring this aspect of you forward? How do
Mm-hmm.
people understand that? Like a big thing for
Right.
me is being a surfer. Well, a surf? What? Well, the surfer means you just kind of think of a surfer, right? You catch a
Yeah.
wave, you're
Yeah.
just like doing your thing, and
Yes.
it's good. It's smooth. You trust that you've got it. You're in
Yeah.
flow.
Yeah. If you
And
get up.
you also take your time, right? Not that wave. Not that wave. Oh yeah, I'm going for that
Oh
one,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
you've got discernment, you've got timing,
Yeah.
you've got your presence, you're paying attention to what you're doing. And then you know when you've got the right one, you're on it and you go. You just trust where you're going. So all of that comes into play just in this one little space for me.
Wow.
That's one aspect of how I show up. So yeah, Success Codex is a next level thing, and it's utterly amazing. Loving it, loving it, loving it. Human design has no end to it, I don't think, but the
Mm-hmm.
depth, it just depends on how you want to go with that depth.
Right.
Right at the beginning, I mentioned that I'm repackaging and doing things a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I'm doing is sometimes people are a little nervous to jump in on human design. Like, what's going to happen? Am I going to get, hexed or something? And no, you'll know if I hex you, but no, and it won't be human design.
Yeah.
But what I'm doing is given this person that came for time management and got money,
Right.
got the money story,
Yeah.
focusing in on what are your areas of difficulty? Where are you
Yeah.
stuck? Do you have endless relationships at work that are just so annoying? You keep switching company and yet the same problem comes up?
Mm-hmm.
Common
Wherever you go,
denominator
there
is
you
you.
are.
Yes. The common denominator is you. So no
Yeah.
judgment on my part. I have no time or space for that.
Right.
But let's look at what is that?
Yeah.
Where could that show up in your design where you've been
Mm-hmm.
conditioned? It's not you designed that way, it's the story you've bought into. And once you see that and you break that apart, you don't have to do it anymore. It's
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
That's it. You don't have to revisit. You don't have to, do it again in 6 months. Like you've done it.
Yeah. So, speaking of all of this kind of put into a package and going back to, and I know you don't have a crystal ball. I'm talking to your intuition now that we are in this first year and you commented about the 10, so I want you to just highlight about what you were talking about there. I missed that conversation. But also because we feel, at least my opinion is that the world has felt so superficial, especially with AI. Not that there's anything wrong with AI, I love it, but we're very much about the superficial and the scrolling and the minute to. I believe that we are craving the deepness. So this deepness that you're offering with this human design and this codex, what is your intuition telling you how that's going to really begin to percolate up more in 2026? Do you even feel that? Because I feel like we are moving in this direction of newness, rebuilding, but also of connecting not with our authentic self, with our deep soul self.
I'm going to go with the theme of the year 10, as I was mentioning to you
Yeah.
earlier. I think it's not so much newness as rebirth, which is very
Yeah.
different.
Okay.
And
I'll take that.
but yeah, the language piece is kind
Yeah.
of in
Yeah.
there. And human design, I think people are craving connection, yes, but also understanding.
Yeah.
Like what the hell is going on? And why am I here? What is all of this doing? Why do
Hmm.
these things happen? There's an awful lot of why. And
Yeah.
we've always asked why, but it's more pressing now.
Yeah.
And then you've got this layer of superficiality, which really came in with social media, where
Hmm.
people can run their mouths about things that they wouldn't dare say to your face, or
Yeah.
at least they didn't used to dare to say it to your face, right?
Exactly.
Like it wouldn't be a thing. The blatant lies that people tell
Yeah.
and have no fear of repercussion has altered what we will accept
Yeah.
and and what we believe even. Then you've got all the bots that put stuff into social media. You
Yeah.
don't even know if it's a person now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what are we interacting with? So
Yeah.
superficial? Yeah, definitely. Artificial? More than likely.
Mhm.
Stupid? Often. You know, it's really it's a problematic world. So how do you navigate that with integrity? How do you navigate that in a way that you can kind of say, yeah, that's me. I decided that. I did,
Yes.
yeah, I'm doing this.
Hmm.
And how do you have a solid enough foundation that when somebody else tries to rock you off it, you can
Hmm.
actually hold still and say, you know what, thanks for giving me your
Thanks for
inputs
sharing.
that I didn't ask for. You can take it with you as you leave. Bye. You know, like you don't have to be bothered by that.
Yeah.
You know, I had a company today write to me and tell me, oh, well, you know, you said you weren't going to work with us, but before you leave altogether, you have to do this thing. And I looked at it and I was like, I have to what now? I what? And so I just sent an email back saying, I'm sorry, I think you misunderstood. I said, no, thank you. And I don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
But where were they? You know, where were their collective thoughts that they thought they could tell me that?
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, really? We're just going to
Yeah.
throw that out and see if it sticks? Did they think I
Yes.
was, you know, stupid or like, where did that come from? I'm not going to let it bother me, but it fascinates me that they thought they could do that.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's
You know,
my
what have we come to that this is normal now?
my word for 2026, and it's probably been my word for a while, but it really is curiosity. Like, just be
Yes.
curious about, like, they wrote you this thing is really how interesting. But I ask you what that was all about, because this curiosity, I think we've lost it. I love the idea of curiosity in this newness and being curious about ourselves. So I know I've gone a little bit over on this. I just have had so much fun with this conversation. I want you to leave us with what your best guidance or wisdom for somebody listening to this in 2026 would be, whether they come and look at human design or not, because human design is about uncovering, being curious about who we are. What is the best wisdom that you can give to anybody, especially a woman on the planet right now, to move herself to that place of soulfulness? I'm going to just use that word instead of authenticity.
Okay, well, as you first started saying that, what came up to me was the thing that I value very highly, so I like to sort of suggest it to other people is kindness. Be
Hmm.
kind. You know, if you're not kind, I don't care what else you are. You could be brilliant. If you're not kind, I'm not interested to talk to you. You could be rich. If you're not kind, I don't care. It's just
Yeah.
not, you know, kindness is the first thing that I look for in a
Yeah.
person. And if you can be kind to yourself first, you have more capacity for others. And part of being kind to yourself is to allow yourself to be who you came to be. Allow yourself to
Hmm.
really step into your personal power. That doesn't mean you're going to wear the suit and do all the things like, not that kind of power. The
Yeah.
power to stand up and say, yeah, this is who I am. This is what I stand for. And if you don't like it, you can leave.
Yeah.
Bye. And with goodwill, you know, like carry on your path. This is clearly not it. And that's
Mhm.
fine. It's all going to be okay. You can allow it with kindness,
Yeah.
right? If you're not kind, what are you?
Yeah. So I have to tell you, I love synchrodestiny, the way Deepak Chopra explains it. And so I had my first guest of this 2026 on yesterday and asked a similar question, and it was exactly the same word, kindness. So I'm like, okay, universe, I'm listening. That's very powerful. And it's one of those, another word that's so simple. And I think when we get to simplicity, I think it's about deep and simple at the same time. We can go deep, but it's the simplicity that sometimes gets pushed to the side. So I'm going to just allow this conversation to percolate, because I believe that this kindness conversation is going to come up more than once. And what a brilliant way to wrap this up. I'm so thrilled that you took time to come and share with us today, because you have so much, so many gifts, so much wisdom. And as I said, check it out on on the notes, the show notes. I've got her website and where you can get to do your human design and also just connect with you. And for sure, I want you to come back when you got the codex going. That's going to be fun.
Great. And thank you so much for having me today. It's been a blast. I've had a lot of
Yeah.
fun.
Thank you.